everyone, and welcome to this tutorial on protecting workbooks, worksheets and cells in Excel. Now, it's really important to understand how to protect your workbooks, your worksheets and your cells because it helps to maintain the integrity of your spreadsheet, and it also helps to reduce any errors that are going into that spreadsheet. So if you can imagine this scenario for one moment, you've spent a long time putting together a really nice complex spreadsheet and you've ensured that all of the formulas work, it's easy to update and also it's nicely formatted. You then decide to share that spreadsheet with other members of your team, and before you know it, mistakes have crept in, formulas have been accidentally edited or maybe deleted and links broken. And for you as the creator of this spreadsheet, having spent so much time on that, it's extremely frustrating, and it also creates unnecessary work for you as you then have to go into the spreadsheet and attempt to rectify any mistakes that have been made. Now, all of this could be avoided if we simply employed some steps to protect our worksheet and the data. And that's what we're going to work through in this tutorial video. I'm going to show you not only how you can protect the worksheet, but also the entire workbook if you so desire. And I'm also going to show you how you can make it so that if people need to be able to edit certain cells or specific areas, then you can do that as well. So let's start out by taking a look at a very simple example as to how you can protect the entire workbook. Now, when it comes to protecting the workbook, you have three options. You can encrypt it with a password, which will limit who can open that workbook. You can make the file open as read-only by default, so that the people must opt into that in order to edit it. Or you can protect the structure of the workbook so that anyone can open it, but they need a password to do anything related to the structure, such as deleting worksheets, rearranging them, renaming them, or even creating new worksheets. So let's look at each of those with an example. So the first one we're going to talk about is encrypting the entire workbook with a password, and this is probably the highest level of protection you can have. So I have a very simple worksheet open on the screen right now, and if I want to protect or encrypt it with a password, I'm going to jump up to my File option, and I'm going to go down to the Info tab. And you'll see here the first option that we have is Protect Workbook, and if I click that drop down, I have numerous different options, but one of them in there is Encrypt with a password. So let's select that, and as you would expect, it's asking me to type in a password. Now, you'll see underneath you do get a little bit of a caution message, and this is really important. So it says if you lose or forget the password, it cannot be recovered. So it's advisable to keep a list of your passwords and their corresponding document name in a safe place. So essentially, if you set a password on this workbook and then you forget what that password is, there's nowhere you can go to in order to retrieve that information. There's no little helpful link which will allow you to get your password. You really do have to remember it. So I'm going to click on OK. It's asking me to re-enter. Click on OK again. And you can see now it says a password is required to open this workbook. So let's do that. So I'm back at the Excel home screen now, and you can see in my recent files, this is the one here that I've just encrypted with the password. So I'm going to open that, and you can see straight away it's asking me for the password. So essentially, anybody who doesn't have this password is going to be unable to get into that particular workbook. Now, if you decide that you want to remove that password, you basically need to take the same steps as what you did when you set the password. So we're going back to File. We're going down to Info. I'm going to click Protect Workbook drop down and click on Encrypt with Password. And all I need to do is just remove that password from the box, click on OK, and I've now unprotected that entire workbook. So that is the first option that you have. Your second option is to open the file as read-only. And this process is probably the simplest, but you need to be aware that it provides the least amount of protection. So anyone can still open the workbook and just click on the Enable Editing button to make changes. So the way that I like to look at this is that it's really just a bit of a warning to the person opening the workbook that you have set it to read only, so they should be wary of any changes that they make. But let's take a look how you make a workbook read-only. Again, we're going to jump up to File, and we're going to go down to Info. We're going to click Protect Workbook, and the first option there, Always Open Read Only. So now if I close down Excel once more, open it back up again, and let's try and jump into our spreadsheet. I'm going to click to open. And you'll see what happens is that the workbook does open, but at the top in the heading bar it says read only, and I also have this yellow warning message saying to prevent accidental changes, the author has set this file to open as read only. So essentially all anyone has to do in order to make changes to this spreadsheet is just click on that Edit Anyway button at the top, and they can now happily make changes. So it provides the least amount of protection. And again, if I want to remove that, if I go back to File, go down to Info, select Always Open Read Only, and that removes that particular protection. Now the third option is that we can protect the workbook structure. So what we mean by that is the actual structure of the worksheet. So we're going to allow them to maybe edit things in cells, but they can't do things that affect the structure. So things like rename worksheets, move worksheets around, create or delete new worksheets. So again, you'll find this option up in File. In the Info section, we're going to click Protect Workbook, and the option here, Protect the Workbook Structure. It's going to ask me to enter in a password, and again, this is one that I need to remember. I'm selecting to protect the structure only. I'm going to click on OK. I need to re-enter my password. And there we go. So now what you'll see is if I right-click on Sheet 1 at the bottom, you'll see that a number of these options are now grayed out, so they're inactive. So things like Insert, delete the worksheet, rename it, move it, I can't access those. So the workbook structure is completely protected. However, I can jump into here and I can edit cells. So that's another option that you might want to explore. Let's turn that back off by going back to File and Info, clicking the drop down, and just typing in the password to unprotect that workbook. So 3 super simple options when it comes to protecting your entire workbook. Let's now focus on how you can protect a worksheet. So when we're talking about worksheets, we mean these little tabs at the bottom, the individual worksheets that make up the workbook. And you can protect these independently. So I might want to protect Sheet 1, but maybe not Sheet 2. So I'm going to jump back to Sheet 1. And I'm going to just do a blanket protection of this sheet. Now for this, you need to jump up to the Review ribbon, and you'll see that you have a Protect group, and one of the options in there is Protect Sheet. So at this stage, I need to enter in a password in order to protect this sheet, but I can also specify things that I want to allow users to be able to do. So if I wanted them to be able to do nothing and essentially just view this worksheet, I'd probably want to untick all of these. However, you can see that I have 2 items ticked here. So despite the fact that the worksheet is going to be protected, I'm going to allow users to select, lock cells, and also unlock cells. So they can essentially click on cells. If you want them to be able to do other things, such as format cells, maybe insert columns and rows, then you can go through this list and choose what you want them to be allowed to do. Now I'm going to keep mine on select locked and unlocked cells, and I'm going to add a password. I'm going to click on OK. Let's confirm the password. So now essentially I can still select because I allowed that, but if I try and type in a cell, I'm going to get that error message because essentially the rest of the worksheet outside of those 2 things is now protected. And if I want to unprotect that sheet, I have an Unprotect Sheet button on the Review ribbon. And again, I just type in my password to remove that protection. Now the final thing I'm going to show you in this video is how you can protect specific cells from editing. So it might be that sometimes you want to protect the entire worksheet, but you want to allow people to still maybe input items or data into specific cells. So in the example that I have here, I have some companies listed. I have the invoice amount for those companies. So in this cell you can see that I have a formula, and basically this is just a calculation. It's working out how much VAT is to be paid on this invoice, and it's using the VAT rate. You can see they're listed in cell G3. And then we have the total, which is also another calculation which basically just adds together the invoice amount and the VAT amount in order to arrive at this figure. Now what I might want to do is lock all of the cells so that none of these are editable, but I want to keep the VAT rate, so over here in cell G3, I want to unlock that. Maybe that VAT rate changes every single month, and people need to be able to go in and change that VAT rate and have all these figures update. So what we're going to do is we're going to essentially protect all of the cells on this worksheet, but we're going to leave cell G3 open and available for editing. Now the way that you do this kind of comes across as if it's a little bit backward. And the concept that you need to get your head around here is that by default, every cell in Excel is locked. Now you might be thinking, well, how can that be? Because you can jump into any cell and you can start typing. So if every cell is by default locked, how is that the case? Well, that's because every cell is locked, but that locking doesn't take effect until you protect the worksheet. So what we essentially need to do is unlock the cell or cells that we want people to be able to edit, and then apply protection to the worksheet, which will lock everything else. So I want cell G3 to be unlocked. So I'm going to click in cell G3, right-click my mouse, and I'm going to go down to Format Cells. And you'll see here we have a tab called Protection. And you'll see what I mean. It's got a tick in the locked box, and you'll find this no matter which cell you click on, because by default every cell is locked. So I'm going to take the check out of there to unlock cell G3 and click on OK. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to protect the entire worksheet. So I'm going to click on my Protect Sheet button on the Review tab. I'm going to add a password. I'm going to confirm it. And now what you'll see is if I go over here somewhere, so into the VAT amount, and try to edit this, it's going to tell me that I can't do that. However, if I come to cell G3 and change this VAT amount to 25%, when I hit enter, you'll see it allows me to do that, and all the formulas update. So that's a great way of being able to cut down on the amount of errors going into your spreadsheet, and also protect any formulas that you have from editing. And of course, if I want to remove that protection, I just jump up to the Unprotect Sheet button, I enter in my password, and away I go. I can now come in here and I can make changes if I need to. So that is it. That's a run through of all of the different ways that you can maintain the integrity of your data in a worksheet.